Hey listeners, quick question. Are you tired of overpaying for your mobile plan? I've got the answer. Ting Mobile. Ting Mobile is all about flexibility and savings. You only pay for what you use, no crazy fees or overages. It's perfect for those who want control over their phone bill without sacrificing quality. Say goodbye to bloated phone bills. Go to krmpods.com/ting. Ting Mobile. Mobile that makes sense.
You're listening to Fox City's Murder and Mayhem, your bi-weekly dose of true crime history in a small rural community of Wisconsin.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fox City's Murder and Mayhem. I'm Eric.
I'm Gavin.
Gavin, we're back with another episode.
Yes.
In Arthur Wilson, I believe.
Yes.
I do this because Gavin doesn't print off his notes.
Well,
so he has to come here and print them off in my house every time I do this.
I've been trying to print them off, but see, the thing is, I literally put this together last night.
Oh.
Yeah.
Under the candle burning late at night, he was putting together.
Yeah. I had an episode written. I didn't like it. I had a second episode written. I didn't like it. I wrote a third episode. And that's what you're getting. That's what you're getting. So the other two would have been printed. This one was very last minute. But I actually like it the best. The other two we'll get to. We'll talk about them on here. But I didn't find just the right angle on them yet. Because, you know, you can't show up every time and just say, dude shot another dude. Like, there's got to be a little bit of discussion. So I'm trying to find those points.
So with this one, if you don't like this episode, we're in a lot of trouble because it took 3 episodes to get to this episode. So.
Yeah.
Well,
I like this episode already. And we didn't even do it yet. Yeah.
All right. Well, kick her off. Let's hear it.
I'm gonna even play a trick on you with this one.
Are you?
Yep. So, just so people know, right up front, give you a little idea. We're gonna talk a little bit about the Circus.
The Circus, nice.
This is an Appleton story, so we're gonna talk a little bit about Appleton, and that's probably about it. It's probably all you need to know up front. Appleton and the Circus.
I'm excited for the Circus, so.
All right. We're going to get right into it, too. On the evening of July 16th, 1929, Circus employee Arthur Wilson, who is 21 years old, was arrested in Appleton and accused of assaulting a man and trying to violate the man's 15-year-old daughter.
Ooh.
Yes. So I should clarify also early on, there is no murder in this episode. But
there isn't.
There is not. But despite that, I still think it's a good story. There were several arresting officers on the scene. Even the chief of police himself, George Prim, showed up because they wanted to find this guy so badly. Chief Prim was a former Chicago cop before coming to Appleton, so he'd seen some stuff. They eventually found Wilson sitting inside of a boxcar at the train depot. He was brought to the jail to face court before Judge Theodore Berg. Stepping back a moment here. The alleged incident was that John Kirsten, 40 years old, was attacked at the corner of Douglas and Franklin around 9 or 9:30 p.m. He was walking home to his house at 1513 West Franklin with his 15-year-old daughter from the showgrounds on Badger Avenue. I was going to look up to see where the showgrounds on Badger Avenue were. I didn't get to that point, so I can't tell you
where.
Can't tell you where that was. But use your imagination.
Well, yeah, just think of Badger Avenue.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that long of a road, right?
Right.
So
a man believed to be Wilson jumped Kirsten and broke his jaw in 2 places before knocking him unconscious. He then went after the girl. She was scratched and bruised around her neck, but was able to scream and break free. The intersection where this happened, at Douglas and Franklin, at that point in time had no houses, so no one heard the screams. But luckily, the girl got away.
Right.
When police arrived, they brought Kirsten to the hospital. Wilson was part of the traveling 101 Ranch and Wild West show. What was that you say? I'm glad you asked. As far back as 1893, Colonel George Washington Miller, a Confederate veteran, started a ranch in Oklahoma. He had 110,000 acres.
Wow.
Yes, that he leased from a local tribe there. At the time, it was the largest ranch in the United States. In 1903, he died, and his 3 sons took over. They were Joe, Zach, and George Miller. Strangely enough, he had another son named John Wilkes Booth Miller, but he
Okay.
died as a child. So that's I just want to throw that in there because this guy was in the Confederacy during the Civil War, and then after the war was over, he got married and had kids. And he named one of his kids after the guy who shot Abraham Lincoln.
So he probably was still very much not for what the outcome of the Civil War was.
Right. So yeah, if you name your kid after a presidential assassin, I don't know what that says, but just throwing that out there. All right, so the 3 brothers, they have this ranch, and they decide that along with just having the ranch, let's have a Wild West show.
Okay.
Which, was not uncommon. There actually were a few competing Wild West shows. Most famous was Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, which people may have heard of. And they would have things like people doing stunts on horses, people shooting trick shots, like how far away can you hit a tiny pea-sized thing. And then you throw in your regular circus-type stuff as well. At this point, by the time they reach Appleton in 1929, they're kind of on the low end of the business. They were pretty big for a while. They're coming back down. They had gone through some rough years during World War I, and now it's just around the time where the Depression's kind of off and going. So they are not the
thriving.
Peak. Yeah, not the peak of their time here. Included on the 1929 tour, so these are the people who were probably actually performing in Appleton on this day, were Trick Rider, Suicide Ted Elder.
These are awesome names, by the way, so far.
Cowboy Clown Jack Satchel and his mule Beans, the Jewish midget Pee Wee Lunsford, Sword Swallower Milo, Snake Enchantress Blondie, the Human Art Gallery Mickey Manison, Knife Thrower Pamplin, Leading Lady Dixie Starr, and her man, Jack Hoxie. Jack Hoxie and Dixie Starr were very low-level actors, like B or C level actors in silent movie westerns. So if you've not heard of them, I'm not surprised. There's no reason you should have. But if you liked silent westerns in the 1920s, these names would have actually meant something to you.
So these people, were they like the highlight of the show, more or less, was the fact that they had these 2 actors?
They definitely put them on the marquee,
Okay.
yeah. They're like, come meet Jack Hoxie and Dixie Starr, and then we'll see the other stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, they were definitely considered a draw. Detour aside, back to Appleton. Arthur Wilson denied his guilt, no matter how he was questioned. The police photographed and fingerprinted him and put him in a lineup. The girl saw the lineup and picked him out immediately. According to the newspaper, that's how the newspaper worded it, she picked him out as the moron who attacked her. Which I'm not sure what they're saying there. So at this point in time, the word moron was an actual word.
Okay.
Like now when we say moron, just like you're an idiot, you're stupid, whatever. At this point in time, it was an actual like term that doctors would use, and it generally meant somebody who had like the mental capacity of somebody roughly 8 to 12 years old. This was an actual term that they used.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that's what the newspaper is saying, is that this guy is supposed to be slow, but I don't know. They don't explain that. And in fact, they're going to contradict themselves on this point.
So I'm curious because you obviously went through the time to look up and figure out, okay, why where they called a moron.
Right, and I had heard that. I had heard that.
So you knew that was that meant something different back in the day?
Right. I know that they're used, like a lot of the terms that we use for stupid, a lot of them were actually different levels of slowness, which we don't use any of those anymore. But okay, so he appeared in court for his initial appearance. He, of course, pleaded not guilty. At the preliminary hearing, he again maintained his innocence. While there, he acted as his own attorney, and according to news coverage, quote, he displayed an intimate and accurate knowledge of court procedure. He cross-examined the witnesses produced by the prosecution. So they actually said he did a really good job defending himself, which is like, this is why I say, like, this is like immediately contrary to them just saying that he's an idiot, he's a moron. Now they're saying that he knows how to handle himself in a courtroom, which, I mean, not that necessarily is like anything special, but he's clearly knows
what he's
something.
Doing. He's probably not slow, at least, right?
Yeah, so there we go. In fact, he did a pretty good job of defending himself. He was able to get John Kirsten to say that he could not positively identify Arthur Wilson as the man who attacked him, only that he matched the general appearance of him. However, the girl stood very firm and said it was definitely Wilson. So he didn't get let go on the preliminary hearing. He did get bound over for trial. Not able to pay his $3,000 bond, he spent his time in jail. While in jail, the court decided we can't have this guy representing himself, and he's clearly too poor to hire an attorney, so we'll get him an attorney. One of those nice things that they do for you. So they hired on Abraham Sigmund of the firm Sigmund and Sigmund. The other Sigmund is his brother Sam. He was appointed to represent Wilson. Sigmund immediately filed a thing saying that Wilson should not have been allowed to conduct his own preliminary hearing. So he actually got a second preliminary hearing. Despite that, it didn't do him any good. He was held over for trial anyway. Nice thought, but it didn't really make much difference.
So the real lawyer couldn't do any better job than he could do by himself.
Pretty much, yes. Yeah. All right. They had a month to prepare for the case. During that month, Abraham Sigmund went to North Carolina to get depositions from 4 circus employees. By this point in time, the circus had made its way to North Carolina. So it's not just like a random thing. This is where they are on the tour. He goes and he talks to 4 different people, including the guy who owns the circus, trying to get an idea of the background on Arthur Wilson, maybe where he was during the day, and see if there's anything that might, put him in a positive light.
Mm-hmm.
So he does that. The trial begins on schedule the morning of October 3rd. Jury duty proved to be a challenge. Many of the potential jurors said that they had already formed an opinion of the case. Despite that, they were able to put a jury together, and everybody on the jury was an Appleton resident, which I thought was kind of odd, but maybe that's normal. I don't know. And they listed the jurors and the addresses in the newspaper. I will not read them, but
okay.
but it will be online. So if people care who was sitting on the jury, I do have that information. During opening statements, Sigmund laid out his defense. He said Wilson had an alibi and was not at the scene of the crime. In fact, he was 2 miles away. The prosecution consisted of the man, John Kirsten, and his daughter testifying, and this remained unchanged. John Kirsten was still not 100% in his identification, but the daughter still was. When it came time for the defense, Wilson took the stand on his own behalf, which is usually a big no-no, but apparently the attorney thought this was a good idea. He testified that he had actually quit the circus that afternoon before the attack, and he spent the evening at the train depot waiting for a train to Chicago. That's why they found him sitting in a boxcar, because he was going to hop a boxcar and ride to Chicago that way. Apparently it used to be cool to just sneak into boxcars. The depot was 2 miles from the attack site. His only transportation was walking, so it wasn't like he drove there. Like 2 miles is a significant distance from the site. On cross-examination, Wilson admitted that he had previously served time in Detroit for an unidentified offense. So he had done prison time before. It doesn't say why, but he doesn't have a perfect record either.
Right.
Other evidence for the defense had witnesses saying that a man matching Wilson's description was in a tavern at the time that Wilson said he was there. So again, they weren't 100%, but it was possible that he was in this tavern when he said that he was.
He's totally going to get off, isn't he?
I don't know.
Yeah, you do. You wrote the paper.
Oh, you're right. You're right. You're right. Defense attorney Sigmund then pulled out his secret weapon, a farmer's almanac.
Okay.
The Kirsten girl claimed that she was able to identify the man who attacked her because there was a full moon. Sigmund showed the jury that the full moon was a week after the attack, and therefore it definitely could not have been bright enough for the girl to have seen the man like she had claimed.
I guess. I mean, I think that's kind of loose, don't you?
I don't have an opinion. I'm just telling you what they did.
Okay.
The jury went out to deliberate. They weren't out very long. They came back with their verdict. What is their verdict?
Not guilty.
You are correct. It is not guilty.
I'm getting better at guessing.
Yeah.
You just always go not guilty.
Yeah. So Arthur Wilson was set free, and he either was guilty and he was found not guilty, or he really was not guilty, and the real attacker was never caught.
The information they gave there, it could have gone either way.
It could.
I mean, as you were reading it, did you have like a thought like this guy had to have done it? I guess there's not enough there to really.
I don't know. I don't have enough details where I would think that when he's put in a lineup and he's identified, that's usually like a good start.
Yeah.
Nothing else, but.
Did you say, how did they originally get onto Arthur Wilson as being the guy? Like, after it happened, how did they figure out?
Well, so here's the part where I pulled the trick on you.
Okay.
You ready for this trick?
Sure.
I left out a really crucial piece of information from the story.
Well, okay. So what's the really crucial piece of information?
Arthur Wilson is black.
Okay. So
when they said it was a black circus employee, they already had it narrowed down who they were looking for.
Oh. Okay, so who said it was a black circus employee?
The girl.
The girl said it was?
Yeah.
Okay. And was there more than one black?
There were.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
but then he came under suspicion because he had quit that afternoon. They kind of singled him out pretty quickly.
But
the reason I purposely didn't mention it is because I think it's really interesting, and maybe this is just me, maybe I'm way off base here, but I find it really interesting that he was found not guilty.
Actually, you're extremely right. Yeah, I guess I hadn't thought that way. But yeah, Eric, you're right. And the other thing that adds to it, I think, is that his secret weapon, the Farmer's Almanac.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I hate to say it, but if it's kind of dark out,
yeah,
and you see a black person, it's going to be really hard to really make out any sort of facial feature of it, right? Because
I was like, be careful how you word.
I don't want, that's why I was timid about saying that. But yeah, it's going to be very hard to see.
Right.
I mean, not that it wouldn't be hard to see somebody that was white too, but I think it would be because there's a contrast of color there.
But I found that really interesting. That's why I left it out, is because the whole time they're saying, and the paper does not clarify this, but they kept saying that, I'm not sure if it is him, but he matches the general description.
And you're like,
and I'm not sure if they meant like what he was wearing, or if that was just being like, oh yeah, this guy.
Well, he's a black circus employee, so he fits the general description, right?
But yeah, but that's what I find great, is that he goes on trial. This girl is positive. She's swearing up and down. This guy attacked me. He tried to rape me. He's a black guy. It's an all-white jury. And he still is found not guilty. And I think that's amazing, because even if he was innocent, I think the girl saying that, most cases, he would have been screwed.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I should say this, but I've been a juror before. and I've sat and it was a rape.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, like when I was in this room, half the people, their minds were made up before the trial even started.
Yeah.
There was certain people in there that you knew they were going to go one way or the other. It did not matter what happened throughout the trial.
Yeah.
So, and taking it back to this person is African American, and it's in the 30s?
Basically, 1929.
Yeah, so 1929, you would have thought that going in, probably well over half of those people would have already had their mind made up.
Right.
Especially being from Appleton.
Right.
That's
what I'm saying. Like, I mean, I don't want to like be stereotyping the opposite direction either, but that really surprised me, because as I'm reading the articles and I'm putting the notes together, like, so I knew that right up front. I knew that the part that I didn't say, I knew that right up front. And I'm thinking, there's no way this guy's getting out of this.
Mm-hmm.
And he did. And I was like, wow.
So,
because even just the way like the newspaper would write it, they would, I'm sorry I'm going to use this language on the podcast, but they'd be like, the colored man,
mm-hmm.
and they'd be like writing the headlines and stuff.
Yeah.
Be like colored man on trial for rape. And like, already, like, the headline doesn't make you sound great. The way like, they just say man on trial. Like, they're already being like, yeah, this guy. So.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Actually, if so, and maybe that just shines that there are really good people out in the world, and maybe in the 20s, because I guess in my head, I don't know.
Or maybe he did it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and maybe he did do it.
Yeah.
But the fact that I think what's more impressive about it is the fact that in the era he was in, he was able to be found not guilty.
Right.
I mean,
that's what I'm saying. It wasn't even like a hung jury or anything. All 12 people had to agree. Yeah.
And they said no. So,
yeah.
God, I'd really love to like really, really hear like the testimony and stuff, because there must have been some, because you didn't really give a smoke and dagger.
No. Like
that to get them off.
I gave you everything that I had.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely.
But I feel like there had to have been something in there where it was like, yeah, this is obviously not the guy.
I agree, and I'm reading it, and I thought this Farmer's Almanac defense, I thought this was like the stupidest thing I ever heard. I get this. She's like, oh yeah, I could tell because it was a full moon, and dude's like, ha ha ha, you were off. Full moon is a week away. Like, okay, yeah, that's a clever move, but this is like 9 or 9:30 at night, which is late, but it's also July.
Yeah, so 9 or 9:30.
So it's probably not even that dark.
Yeah, it's not pitch black. It's
So, like, to me, I'm like, did you even need the moonlight? I don't know.
That is very true. Yeah.
So I don't know how much of this is like, I don't know. Again, like I said, I only have what the newspaper gave me, but based on what they gave me, I don't know how to decide what the truth of the matter was.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting story.
Yeah.
I think you did stumble upon a pretty good one with this.
See, that's what I thought.
And without the murder and mayhem, we didn't even have to put the dabble in of history on it or anything. It just panned out to be a pretty good story.
Yeah, that's what I say. Like, nobody got killed, but I thought, and even the circus part is a relatively minor part of the story. Like, it doesn't really play into like what happened. But I thought, this was a really good. It's always dangerous to talk about race because you could say just the wrong thing and it's like,
yeah, and then it comes off as really wrong.
Yeah, because it was really wrong. But I thought this was a great example of just a case where like it doesn't go the way you might think it would go.
Yeah. Well,
but you thought not guilty. But I wonder if you would have thought the other way if I gave you that piece.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I would have gone guilty all the way if you would have told me it was Nate.
See, and that's why I left it out because I'm like let's see if you think the jury would decide differently. So,
and I think that would have completely changed my perspective, and I want to clarify that that's not because I'm racist.
No,
it's just my perception of people in the 20s is that they're like 10 times more racist than they are now. And still, I think now it's a challenge, unfortunately, for an African American to
Right.
No,
a
fair try.
I completely agree with that. But yeah, at this point in time, I mean, I'm the 1920s, 1930s. I'm very surprised that it worked out. I got a little bit of follow up if you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take her away.
Because of the Great Depression, the financial situation of the 101 Ranch and Wild West show became overwhelming. And in 1931, so,
Only not too long after that.
Not too long after this, both the show and the ranch went out of business and had to be sold off at auction. The remaining brother, after the other two brothers passed on, is Zachary Miller. He lives actually for many years after, but he moves to Waco, Texas. While there, he has a series of misfortunes. He spends some time in jail when he's unable to pay alimony to an ex-wife, and then at the end of his life, he's trampled by donkeys and then dies not long after.
Man, I thought you were going to tell me that he joined a religious cult or something.
No, but he got trampled by donkeys.
Which is pretty memorable.
Yeah.
Would this have been at a time, and you probably don't know this, was this when the circus thing was a huge?
Oh, totally.
Yeah, this would have been like when the circus was a massive thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Circus was huge. And there's a big overlap between circuses and like the trains. So it's not just like this guy riding the boxcars. Like that's how the train comes into town. So yeah, when the railroads are like at their peak and you can get anywhere by rail, that's when the circus is really good.
Taken off.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Got one last little tiny piece.
Okay.
Brothers Abraham and Sam Sigmund had started Sigmund and Sigmund in 1925, so a couple years before the story starts.
I'm curious if this is where this is going to go. Okay,
I don't know.
Keep going.
I don't know where you think this is going to go, but as of 2022, which is today...
There's Sigmund, and Rotier or something like that?
You're on the right track. As of 2022, the firm is still going strong, but today it is known as Sigmund Jansen.
Oh, Sigmund Jansen.
And then a bunch of other little names underneath it. But they switch out the other names all the time.
But I think it used to be like Sigmund something and Rotier.
Yeah, I think it was like Sigmund Jansen Sutter, Rotier.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah, they switched those names up, but they keep Sigmund in the name, even though Sigmund has been dead for decades.
I was going to ask that question, but I didn't know. I was going to leave it till the end to see if that was... if you just brought it up, because I figured that was the same law firm.
Yeah, so this defense attorney 100 years ago, his law firm, even though he's no longer around, his law firm is still going strong.
That is crazy. So, all right, well, actually you did add a little bit of history into it for us. So,
yeah.
So,
see, right. I thought this was a solid episode.
It was.
If somebody wants to email and be like, "No, your episode sucked," I mean, okay, but I liked it, and that's all that matters. So,
all right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. We will be back in 2 weeks with another episode.
All right, very good.
Thanks for tuning in to Fox City's Murder and Mayhem. Join us in 2 weeks for another exciting episode of Murder and Mayhem.